Chapter 1. The social basis of the third universal theory. The social factor, the national factor, is the dynamic force of human history. The social bond, which binds together human communities from the family through the tribe to the nation, is the basis for the movement of history. Heroes in history are, by definition, those who have sacrificed for causes. But what causes? They sacrificed for the sake of others, but which others? They are those with whom they maintain a relationship. Therefore, the relationship between an individual and a group is a social one that governs the people's dealings amongst themselves. Nationalism, then, is the basis upon which one nation emerges. Social causes are therefore national, and the national relationship is a social one. The social relationship is derived from society, i.e., the relationship among members of one nation. The social relationship is therefore a national relationship, and the national relationship is a social relationship. Even if small in number, communities or groups form one nation regardless of the individual relationship among its members. What is meant here by a community is that which is permanent because of the common national ties that govern it. Historic movements are mass movements, i.e. the movement of one group in its own interests differentiated from the interests of other communities. These differentiations indicate the social characteristics that bind a community together. Mass movements are independent movements to assert the identity of a group conquered or oppressed by another group. The struggle for authority happens within the group itself, down to the level of the family, as was explained in Part 1 of the Green Book, the political axis of the Third Universal Theory. A group movement is a nation's movement for its own interests. By virtue of its national structure, each group has common social needs which must be collectively satisfied. These needs are in no way individualistic, they are collective needs, rights, demands, or objectives of a nation which are linked by a single ethos. That is why these movements are called national movements. Contemporary national liberation movements are themselves social movements. They will not come to an end before every group is liberated from the domination of another group. The world is now passing through one of the regular cycles of the movement of history, namely, the social struggle in support of nationalism. In the world of man, this is as much a historical reality as it is a social reality. That means the national struggle, the social struggle, is the basis of the movement of history. It is stronger than all other factors, since it is in the nature of the human group, it is in the nature of the nation, it is the nature of life itself. Other animals, apart from man, live in groups. Indeed, just as the community is the basis for the survival of all groups in the animal kingdom, so nationalism is the basis for the survival of nations. Nations whose nationalism is destroyed are subject to ruin. Minorities, which are one of the main political problems in the world, are the outcome. They are nations whose nationalism has been destroyed and which are thus torn apart. The social factor is therefore a factor of life, a factor of survival. It is the nation's innate momentum for survival. Nationalism in the human world and group instinct in the animal kingdom are like gravity in the domain of material and celestial bodies. If the sun lost its gravity, its gases would explode and its unity would no longer exist. Accordingly, unity is the basis for survival. The factor of unity in any group is a social factor, in man's case nationalism. For this reason, human communities struggle for their own national unity, the basis for their survival. The national factor, the social bond, works automatically to impel a nation towards survival, in the same way that gravity of an object works to keep it as one mass surrounding its centre. The dissolution and dispersion of atoms in an atomic bomb are the result of the explosion of the nucleus, which is the focus of gravitation for the particles around it. When the factor of unity in these component systems is destroyed and gravity is lost, every atom is separately dispersed. This is the nature of matter. It is an established natural law. To disregard it or to go against it is damaging to life. Similarly, man's life is damaged when he begins to disregard nationalism, the social factor, for it is the gravity of the group, the secret of its survival. Only the religious factor is a rival to the social factor in influencing the unity of a group. The religious factor may divide the national group or unite groups with different nationalisms, however the social factor will eventually triumph. This has been the case throughout the ages. Historically, each nation had a religion. This was harmonious. Eventually, however, differences arose which became a genuine cause of conflict and instability in the lives of people throughout the ages. A sound rule is that each nation should have a religion. For it to be otherwise is abnormal. Such an abnormality creates an unsound situation which becomes a real cause for disputes within one national group. There is no other solution but to be harmonious with the natural rule, i.e. each nation has a single religion. When the social factor is compatible with the religious factor, harmony prevails and the life of communities becomes stable, strong, and develops soundly. Marriage is a process that can positively or negatively influence the social factor. Though, on a natural basis of freedom, both man and woman are free to accept whom they want and reject whom they do not want. Marriage within a group, by its very nature, strengthens its unity and brings about collective growth and conformity with the social factor. Chapter 2. Family. To the individual, the family is more important than the state. Mankind acknowledges the individual as a human being, and the individual acknowledges the family, which is his cradle, his origin, and his social umbrella. According to the law of nature, the human race is the individual and the family, but not the state. The human race has neither relations or anything else to do with the state, which is an artificial political, economic, and sometimes military system. The family is like a plant with branches, stems, leaves, and blossoms. Cultivating nature into farms and gardens is an artificial process that has no relevance to the plant itself. The fact that certain political, economic, or military factors tie a number of families into one state does not necessarily link the system or its organisation with humanity. Similarly, any situation, position, or proceeding that results in dispersion, decline, or loss of the family is inhuman, unnatural, and oppressive, analogous to any procedure, measure, or action that destroys a plant and its branches and its withers its leaves and blossoms. Societies in which the existence and unity of the family become threatened due to any circumstance are similar to fields whose plants experience uprooting, drought, fire, weathering, or death. The blossoming garden or field is one whose plants grow, blossoms, and pollinates naturally. The same holds true of human societies. The flourishing society is that in which the individual grows naturally within the family, and the family within society. The individual is linked to the larger family of humankind like a leaf is to a branch or a branch to a tree. They have no value or life if they are separated. The same holds true for individuals if they are separated from their families. The individual without a family has no value or social life. If human society reaches the stage where the individual lives without a family, it would then become a society of tramps without roots like artificial plants. Chapter 3. The Tribe. A tribe is a family which has grown as a result of procreation. It follows that a tribe is an enlarged family. Similarly, a nation is a tribe which has grown throughout procreation. The nation then is an enlarged tribe. The world is a nation which has been diversified into various nations. The world then is an enlarged nation. The relationship which binds the family also binds the tribe, the nation, and the world. However, it weakens with the increase in number. The essence of humanity is that of nation, the essence of nation is that of the tribe, and the essence of the tribe is that of the family. The degree of warmth involved in the relationship decreases proportional with the increase in the size of the social unit. This is an indisputable social fact not only by those who are ignorant of it. The social bond, cohesiveness, unity, intimacy, and love are stronger at the family level than at the tribe level, stronger at the tribe level than that of the nation, and stronger at the level of the nation than that of the world. Advantages, privileges, values, and ideals based on social bonds exist where those bonds are natural and undoubtedly strong. They are stronger at the family level than at the level of the tribe, stronger at the tribal level than that of the nation, and stronger at the national level than that of the world. Thus, these social bonds, benefits, advantages, and ideals associated with them are lost wherever the family, the tribe, the nation, or humankind vanish or are lost. It is, therefore, of great importance of human society to maintain the cohesiveness of the family, the tribe, the nation, and the world in order to benefit from the advantages, privileges, values, and ideals yielded by the solidarity, cohesiveness, unity, intimacy, and love of family, tribe, nation, and humanity. In the social sense, the familial society is better than that of the tribe, the tribal society is better than that of the nation, and the society of the nation is better than world society with respect to fellowship, affection, solidarity, and benefits. Chapter 4. The Merits of the Tribe. Since the tribe is a large family, it provides its members with much the same material benefits and social advantages that the family provides for its members, for the tribe is a secondary family. What must be emphasised is that, in the context of the tribe, an individual might indulge himself in an uncouth manner, something which he would not do within the family. However, because of the smallness and the size of the family, immediate supervision is not exercised, unlike the tribe whose members continually feel that they are under its supervision. In view of these considerations, the tribe forms a behaviour pattern for its members, developing into a social education which is better and more noble than any school education. The tribe is a social school where its members are raised to absorb the high ideals which develop into a behaviour pattern for life. These become automatically rooted as the human being grows, unlike classroom education with its curricula, formally dictated and gradually lost with the growth of the individual. This is so because it is formal and compulsory and because the individual is aware of the fact that it is dictated to him. The tribe is a natural social umbrella for social security. By virtue of social tribal traditions, the tribe provides for its members the collective protection in the form of fines, revenge, and defence, namely social protection. Blood is the prime factor in the formation of the tribe, but it is not the only one because affiliation is also a factor in the formation of the tribe. With passage of time, the difference between the factors of blood and affiliation disappear, leaving the tribe as one social and physical unit, though it remains fundamentally a unit of blood in origin. Chapter 5. The Nation. The nation is the individual's national political umbrella. It is wider than the social umbrella provided by the tribe to its members. Tribalism damages nationalism because tribal allegiance weakens national loyalty and flourishes at its expense. In the same way, loyalty to the family flourishes at the expense of tribal loyalty and weakens it. National loyalty is essential to the nation, but, at the same time, it is a threat to humanity. The nation in the world community is similar to the family in the tribe. The more the families of a tribe feud and become fanatical, the more the tribe is threatened. The family is threatened when its individual members feud and pursue only their personal interests. Similarly, if the tribes of a nation quarrel and pursue only their own interests, then the nation is undermined. National fanaticism expressed in the use of force against weak nations, or national progress which is at the expense of other nations, is evil and harmful to humanity. However, strong individuals who have self-respect and are aware of their own individual responsibilities are important and useful to the family, just as a strong and respectable family, which is aware of its importance, is socially and materially beneficial to the tribe. Equally useful to the whole world is a progressive, productive, and civilized nation. The national political structure is damaged when it descends to a lower social level, namely the family and the tribe, and attempts to act in their manner to adopt their views. The nation is an enlarged family which has passed through the period of the tribe and through the diversification of tribes that have branched out from one common source. It also includes those members who affiliated themselves with its destiny. The family likewise grows into a nation only after passing through the period of the tribe and its diversification, as well as through the process of affiliation, which comes about as a result of interaction between various communities in a society. Inevitably, this is achieved over a long period of time. Although the passage of time creates new nations, it also helps to fragment old ones. Common origin and common destiny, through affiliation, are the two historic bases for any nation, though origins rank first and affiliation second. A nation is not defined only by origin, even though origin is its basis and beginning. In addition to its origin, a nation is formed by human affiliations through the course of history, which induce a group of people to live in one area of land, develop a common history, form one heritage and face the same destiny. A nation, irrespective of blood bond, is formed through a sense of belonging and a shared destiny. But why has the map of the earth witnessed great nations that disappeared to give way to the rise of other nations? Is the reason only political, without any relationship to the social aspect of the third universal theory? Or is it social and so properly the concern of this part of the Green Book? Let us see. The family is indisputably a social structure rather than a political one. The same applies to the tribe because it is a family which has reproduced and enlarged itself to become many families. Equally true, the nation is a tribe after it has grown and its branches have multiplied and become tribes. The nation is also a social structure whose bond is nationalism. The tribe is a social structure whose bond is tribalism. The family is a social structure whose bond is family ties, and global society is a social structure whose bond is humanity. These facts are self-evident. There is then the political structures of the state which are the form of the political map of the world. But why does the map of the world keep changing from one age to the next? The reason is that political structures may or may not be consistent with social structures. When political structures and social reality are congruent, as in the case of the nation-state, it lasts and does not change. If a change is forced by external colonialism or internal collapse, it reappears under the banner of national struggle, national revival, or national unity. When a political structure embraces more than one nation, its maps will be torn up by each nation gaining independence under the banner of its respective nationhood. Thus, the maps of the empires which the world has witnessed have been torn up because they were composed of a number of nations. When every nation clings strongly to its national identity and seeks independence, political empires are torn down and their components revert to their social origins. This is evidently clear through the history of the world when reviewed for the ages. But why were those empires made up of different nations? The answer is that the state is not a social structure like the family, the tribe, and the nation, but rather a political entity created by several factors, the simplest and foremost of which is nationalism. The national state is the only political form which is consistent with the national social structure. Its existence lasts unless it becomes subject to tyranny of another stronger nationalism, or unless its political structure as a state is affected by its social structure in the form of tribes, clans, and families. A political structure is corrupted if it becomes subservient to the sectarian social structure of the family, tribe, or sect and adopts its characteristics. Religious, economic, and military factors also contribute to form a state which differs from the basic national state. A common religion, as well as the requirements of economics or military conquests, may create a state which embraces several nations. Thus, in one age, the world witnesses a state or an empire which will disintegrate in another age. When the spirit of nationalism emerges stronger than religious loyalties or conflict flares up between different nationalisms which were brought together, for example, by one religion, each nation becomes independent and recovers its social structure. That empire then disappears. The role of religion resurfaces when the religious spirit emerges stronger than the spirit of nationalism. Consequently, the various nationalisms are unified under the banner of religion until the national role appears once again, and so on. All states which are composed of several nationalities for whatever reason, religion, economics, military power, or man-made ideology, will be destroyed by national conflict until each nation obtains its independence, because the social factor will inevitably triumph over the political factor. Despite political circumstances which necessitate the establishment of a state, the basis for the life of individuals is the family, and extends to the tribe, the nation, and eventually to all humanity. The essential factor is the social factor. Nationalism is a permanent factor. Stress should be laid on social reality and family care in order to bring up an integrated, well-educated human. Care should then be given to the tribe as a social umbrella, and a natural social school which develops its members at the post-family stage. The nation then follows. The individual learns social values mainly from the family and the tribe, which form a natural social structure created by no particular individual. Taking care of the family is in the interest of the individual, just as the care of the tribe is in the interest of the family, the individual, and the nation. It is part of the national identity. The social factor, the national factor, is the real constant dynamic force behind history. To disregard the national bond of human communities and to establish a political system in contradiction to social reality establishes only a temporary structure which will be destroyed by the movement of the social factor of those groups, i.e., the national integrity and dynamism of each community. These facts are innate in the life of humankind and are not intellectual conjectures. Every individual in the world should be aware of these realities and work accordingly so that his actions may be worthwhile. To avoid deviation, disorder, and damage in the life of human groups, which are the result of a lack of understanding and respect for the principles of human life, it is necessary to know these proven realities. Chapter 6. Woman. It is an undisputed fact that both man and woman are human beings. It follows, as a self-evident fact, that woman and man are equals as human beings. Discrimination against woman by man is a flagrant act of oppression without justification. For woman eats and drinks as man eats and drinks. Woman loves and hates as man loves and hates. Woman thinks, learns and comprehends as man thinks, learns and comprehends. Woman, like man, needs shelter, clothing and transportation. Woman feels hunger and thirst as man feels hunger and thirst. Woman lives and dies as man lives and dies. But why are there men and women? Human society is composed neither of men alone nor of women alone. It is made up naturally of men and women. Why were not only men created? Why were not only women created? After all, what is the difference between men and women, or man and woman? Why was it necessary to create men and women? There must be a natural necessity of the existence of man and woman, rather than man only or woman only. It follows that neither of them is exactly like the other, and the fact that a natural difference exists between men and women is proved by the created existence of men and women. This necessarily means that there is a role for each one of them corresponding to the difference between them. Accordingly, there must be different prevailing conditions for each one in order that they perform their naturally different roles. To comprehend these roles, we must understand the difference in the created nature of man and woman, that is, the natural difference between the two. Women are females and men are males. According to gynecologists, women menstruate every month or so, while men, being male, do not menstruate or suffer during the monthly period. A woman, being female, is naturally subject to monthly bleeding. When a woman does not menstruate, she is pregnant. If she is pregnant, she becomes, due to pregnancy, less active for about a year, which means that all her natural activities are seriously reduced until she delivers her baby. When she delivers her baby or has a miscarriage, she suffers puerperium, a condition attendant on delivery or miscarriage. As man does not get pregnant, he is not liable to the conditions which women, being female, suffer. Afterwards, a woman may breastfeed the baby she bore. Breastfeeding continues for about 2 years. Breastfeeding means that a woman is so inseparable from her baby that her activity is seriously reduced. She becomes directly responsible for another person whom she assists in his or her biological functions. Without this assistance, that person would die. The man, on the other hand, neither conceives nor breastfeeds. End of gynecological statement. All these innate characteristics form differences because of which men and women are not the same. These characteristics in themselves are the realities that define male and female, men and women. They assign to each of them a different role or function in life. This means that men cannot replace women in carrying out these functions. It is worthy of consideration that these biological functions are a heavy burden, causing women great effort and suffering. However, without these functions which women perform, human life would come to an end. It follows that it is a natural function which is neither voluntary nor compulsory. It is an essential function, without which human life would come to a complete halt. Deliberate interventions against conception form an alternative to human life. In addition to that, there exists partial deliberate intervention against conception, as well as against breastfeeding. All these are links in a chain of actions in contradiction to natural life, which is tantamount to murder. For a woman to kill herself in order not to conceive, deliver and breastfeed is within the realm of deliberate artificial interventions, in contradiction with the nature of life epitomised by marriage, conception, breastfeeding and maternity. They differ only in degree. To dispense with the natural role of woman in maternity, nurseries replacing mothers, is a start in dispensing with the human society and transforming it into a merely biological society with an artificial way of life. To separate children from their mothers and to cram them into nurseries is a process by which they are transformed into something very close to chicks, for nurseries are similar to poultry farms into which chicks are crammed after they are hatched. Nothing else would be as appropriate and suitable to the human being and his dignity as natural motherhood. Children should be raised by their mothers in a family where the true principles of motherhood, fatherhood, and comradeship of brothers and sisters prevail, and not an institution resembling a poultry farm. Even poultry, like the rest of the members of the animal kingdom, need motherhood as a natural phase. Therefore, breeding them on farms similar to nurseries is against their natural growth. Even their meat is artificial rather than natural. Meat from mechanized poultry farms is not tasty, and may not be nourishing because the chicks are not naturally bred and are not raised in the protective shade of natural motherhood. The meat of wild birds is more tasty and nourishing because they are naturally fed. As for children who have neither family nor shelter, society is their guardian, and only for them should society establish nurseries and related institutions. It is better for them to be taken care of by society than by individuals who are not their parents. If a test were carried out to discover whether the natural prosperity of the child is towards its mother or the nursery, the child would opt for the mother and not the nursery. Since the natural tendency of a child is towards its mother, she is the natural and proper person to give the child the protection of nursing. Sending a child to a nursery in place of its mother is coercive and oppressive and against its free and natural tendencies. Natural growth for all living things is free and healthy grown. To substitute a nursery for a mother is coercive action against free and sound growth. Children who are shipped off to a nursery are consigned compulsorily or by exploitation and simple-mindedness. They are driven to nurseries purely by materialistic and not by social considerations. If coercion and childish simple-mindedness were removed, they would certainly reject the nursery and cling to their mothers. The only justification for such an unnatural and inhuman process is the fact that the woman is in a position unsuitable to her nature, i.e. she is compelled to perform duties which are unsocial and anti-motherhood. A woman, whose created nature has assigned to her a natural role different from that of a man, must be in an appropriate position to perform her natural role. Motherhood is the female's function, not the male's. Consequently, it is unnatural to separate children from their mothers. Any attempt to take children away from their mothers is coercion, oppression, and dictatorship. The mother who abandons her maternity contradicts her natural role in life. She must be provided with her rights and with the conditions which are non-coercive, unoppressive, and appropriate to her natural role. She can then fulfill her natural role under natural conditions. If the woman is forced to abandon her natural role, regarding conception and maternity, she falls victim to coercion and tyranny. A woman who needs work that renders her unable to perform her natural function is not free, and is compelled to work by need, and in need freedom is latent. Among suitable, and even essential conditions which enable women to perform their natural role, which differs from that of men, are those very conditions which are proper for a human being who is incapacitated and burdened with pregnancy. Bearing another human being in her womb lessens her physical ability. It is unjust to place such a woman, in this stage of maternity, into circumstances of physical work incompatible with her condition. For a pregnant woman to perform such physical work is tantamount to punishment for their betrayal of their maternal role. It is the tax they pay for entering the realm of men, which is naturally alien to their own. The belief, even if it is held by a woman, that she carries out physical labour of her own accord is not in fact true. She performs the physical work only because a harsh materialistic society has placed her, without her being directly aware of it, into coercive circumstances. She has no alternative but to submit to the conditions of that society, even though she may think that she works of her own accord. In fact, the alleged basis that there is no difference in any way between men and women deprives women of her freedom. The phrase, in any way, is a monstrous deception. This idea will destroy the appropriate and necessary conditions which constitute the privilege which women ought to enjoy apart from men in accordance with their distinctive nature and upon which their natural role in life is based. To demand equality between man and woman in carrying heavy weights while the woman is pregnant is unjust and cruel. To demand equality between them in fasting and hardship while she is breastfeeding is unjust and cruel. To demand equality between them in any dirty work which stains her beauty and distracts from her femininity is unjust and cruel. Education that leads to work unsuitable for her nature is unjust and cruel as well. There is no difference between men and women in all that concerns humanity. None of them should marry the other against his or her will, or divorce without a just trial or mutual agreement. Neither should a woman remarry without such agreement or divorce, nor a man without divorce or consent. The woman is the owner of the house because it is one of the suitable and necessary conditions for a woman who menstruates, conceives, and cares for her children. The female is the owner of the maternity shelter, which is the house. Even in the animal world, which differs in many ways from that of humans, and where maternity is also a duty according to nature, it is coercive to deprive the female of her shelter and the offspring of their mother. Woman is female. Being female means she has a biological nature that is different from that of the male. The female's biological nature, differing as it does from that of the male's, has imparted to women characteristics different from those of men in form and in essence. A woman's anatomy is different from that of a man's, just as the female differs in plants and animals. This is a natural and incontrovertible fact. In the animal and plant kingdoms, the male is naturally created strong and aggressive, while the female is created beautiful and gentle. These are natural and eternal characteristics innate to living creatures, whether they are called human beings, animals, or plants. In view of his different nature and in line with the laws of nature, the male has played the role of the strong and striving not by design, but simply because he is created that way. The female has played the role of the beautiful and gentle involuntarily because she was created so. This natural rule is just, partly because it is natural and partly because it is the basic rule for freedom. All living creatures are created free, and any interference with that freedom is coercion. Not to adhere to these natural rules, and to lack concern of their limits, amounts to a wanton act of corruption against the values of life itself. Nature has been designed to be in harmony with the inevitability of life, from what is being to what will become. The living creature is a being who inevitably lives until is dead. Existence between the beginning and the end of life is based on a natural law, without choice or compulsion. It is natural. It is natural freedom. In the animal, plant, and human realms, there must be a male and a female for life to occur from its beginning to its end. Not only do they exist, but they have to exercise, with absolute efficiency, the natural role for which they have been created. If the role is not being efficiently performed, there must be some defect in the organisation of life, caused by historical circumstances. This is the case of societies almost everywhere in the world today, as they confuse the roles of men and women, and endeavour to transform women into men. In harmony with nature and its subsequent purpose, men and women must be creative within their respective roles. To resist is retrogressive. It is directed against nature and destroys the base of freedom, for it is hostile to both life and survival. Men and women must perform, not abandon, the roles for which they are created. Abandoning their role, or even a part of it, only occurs as a result of coercive conditions and under abnormal circumstances. The woman who rejects pregnancy, marriage, beautification, and femininity for reasons of health abandons her natural role in life under these coercive conditions of ill health. The woman who rejects marriage, pregnancy, or motherhood because of work abandons her natural role under similar coercive conditions. The woman who rejects marriage, pregnancy, and maternity without any concrete cause abandons her natural role as a result of a coercive and morally deviant circumstance. Thus, abandoning the natural roles of female and male in life can only occur under unnatural circumstances, which are contrary to freedom and are a threat to survival. Consequently, there must be a world revolution which puts an end to all materialistic conditions hindering women from performing the natural role in life, and so drives them to carry out men's duties in order to attain equal rights. Such revolution will inevitably take place, particularly in industrial societies, as a response to the instinct of survival, even without an instigator revolution such as the Green Book. All societies today look upon women as little more than commodities. The East regards her as a commodity to be bought and sold, while the West does not recognise her femininity. Driving a woman to do a man's work is a flagrant aggression against the femininity with which she is naturally provided and which defines a natural purpose essential to life. Man's work obscures women's beautiful features which are created for female roles. They are like blossoms which are created to attract pollen and produce seeds. If you did away with the blossoms, the role of the plants in life would come to an end. Natural embellishment in butterflies and birds and animal females exists to that natural vital purpose. If a woman carries out men's work, she risks being transformed into a man, abandoning her role and her beauty. A woman has full right to live while being forced to change into a man and to give up her femininity. Physical structure, which is naturally different in men and women, leads to differences in the functions of the organs, which in turn leads to differences in the psyche, mood, emotions, as well as in physical appearance. A woman is tender. A woman is pretty. A woman weeps easily and is easily frightened. In general, women are gentle and men are aggressive by virtue of their inbred nature. To ignore natural differences between men and women and to mix their roles is an absolutely uncivilized attitude, hostile to the laws of nature, destructive to human life, and a genuine case for the wretchedness of human social life. Modern industrial societies, which have made women adapt to the same physical work as men at the expense of their femininity and their natural role in terms of beauty, maternity, and serenity, are materialistic and uncivilized. To imitate them is as stupid as it is dangerous to civilization and humanity. The question, then, is not whether women should or should not work, for this is a ridiculous materialistic presentation of the case. Work should be provided by the society to all able members who need work, men and women, on the condition that individuals work in their own fields and are not coerced into carrying out unsuitable work. For children to find themselves under adult working conditions is unjust and dictatorial. It is equally unjust and dictatorial for women to find themselves under the working conditions of men. Freedom means that every human being gets proper education which qualifies him or her for the work which suits him or her. Dictatorships means that human beings are taught that which is not suitable for them, and are forced to do unsuitable work. Work which is appropriate to men is not necessarily appropriate to women, and knowledge that is proper for children doesn't necessarily suit adults. There is no difference in human rights between man and woman, the child and the adult, but there is no absolute identity between them as regards to their duties. Chapter 7. Minorities. What is a minority? What are its rights and responsibilities? How can the problem of minorities be solved according to the solution to various human problems presented by the third universal theory? There are only two types of minorities. One of them belongs to a nation which provides it with a social framework, while the other has no nation and forms its own social framework. The latter is the one that forms one of the historic groups which eventually constitute a nation by virtue of a sense of belonging and a common destiny. It is now clear that such a minority has its own social rights. Any encroachment on these rights, by any majority, is an act of injustice. Social characteristics are inherent and cannot be given or taken away. The political and economic problems of minorities can only be solved in a society controlled by the masses in whose hands power, wealth and arms should be placed. To view the minorities as a political and economic substrata is dictatorial and unjust. Chapter 8. Black people will prevail in the world. The latest age of slavery has been the enslavement of blacks by white people. The memory of this age will persist in the thinking of black people until they have vindicated themselves. This tragic and historic event, the resulting bitter feeling, and the yearning of the vindication of a whole race constitute a psychological motivation of black people to vengeance and triumph that cannot be disregarded. In addition, the inevitable cycle of social history, which includes the yellow people's domination of the world when it marched from Asia, and the white people's carrying out of a wide-ranging colonialist movement covering all the continents of the world, is now giving way to the re-emergence of black people. Black people are now in a very backward social situation, but such backwardness works to bring about their numerical superiority because their low standards of living has shielded them from methods of birth control and family planning. Also, their old social traditions place no limits on marriages, leading to their accelerated growth. The population of other races has decreased because of birth control, restrictions on marriage, and constant occupation and work, unlike the blacks who tend to be less obsessive about work in a climate which is continuously hot. Chapter 9. Education. Education, or learning, is not necessarily that routinized curriculum and those classified subjects in textbooks which youths are forced to learn during specified hours while sitting in rows of desks. This type of education now prevailing all over the world is directed against human freedom. State-controlled education, which governments boast of whenever they are able to force it on their youths, is a method of suppressing freedom. It is a compulsory obliteration of a human being's talent, as well as a coercive directing of a human being's choices. It is an act of dictatorship, destructive of freedom because it deprives people of their free choice, creativity and brilliance. To force a human being to learn according to a set curriculum is a dictatorial act. To impose certain subjects upon people is also a dictatorial act. State-controlled and standardized education is, in fact, a forced stultification of the masses. All governments which set courses of education in terms of formal curricula and force people to learn those courses coerce their citizens. All methods of education prevailing in the world should be destroyed for a universal cultural revolution that frees the human mind from curricular fanaticism which dictate a process of deliberate distortion of man's tastes, conceptual ability and mentality. This does not mean that schools are to be closed and that people should turn their backs on education, as it may seem to superficial readers. On the contrary, it means that society should provide all types of education, giving people the chance to choose freely any subjects they wish to learn. This requires a sufficient number of schools for all types of education. Insufficient numbers of schools restrict human freedom of choice, forcing them to learn only the subjects available, while depriving them of the natural right to choose because of the unavailability of other subjects. Societies which ban and monopolise knowledge are reactionary societies which are biased towards ignorance and are hostile to freedom. Societies which prohibit the teaching of religion are reactionary societies biased towards ignorance and hostile towards freedom. Societies which monopolise religious education are reactionary societies biased towards ignorance and hostile to freedom. Equally so are the societies which distort the religions, civilizations and behaviours of others in the process of teaching those subjects. Societies which consider materialistic knowledge taboo are likewise reactionary societies, biased towards ignorance and hostile towards freedom. Knowledge is a natural right of every human being, of which no one has the right to deprive him or her under any pretext, except in the case where a person does something which deprives him or her of that right. Ignorance will come to an end, when everything is presented as it actually is, and when knowledge about everything is available to each person in the manner that suits him or her. Chapter 10. Music and Art. Humans, being backward, are still unable to speak one common language. Until this human aspiration is attained, which seems impossible, the expression of joy and sorrow, of what is good and bad, beautiful and ugly, comfortable and miserable, mortal and eternal, love and hatred, the description of colours, sentiments, tastes and moods, all will be expressed according to the language each person speaks spontaneously. Behaviour itself will result from the reaction produced by the feeling that the language creates in the speaker's mind. Learning a single language, whatever it may be, is not a solution for the time being. It is a problem that will inevitably remain without solution until the process of the unification of languages has passed through time, provided that the hereditary factor loses its effect on subsequent generations through the passage of sufficient time. The sentiment, taste, and mood of ancestors form those of their descendants. If those ancestors spoke different languages, and their children, on the contrary, speak a single language, the offspring would not necessarily share common tastes in virtue of speaking a common language. Such common taste can be achieved only when the new language imparts the taste and the sense transmitted by inheritance from one generation to another. If one group of people wears white clothes in mourning and another group puts on black, the sentiment of each group will be adjusted according to those two colours, i.e. one group rejects the black colour on such an occasion, while the other one prefers it, and vice versa. Such a sentiment leaves its physical effects on the cells, as well as on the genes in the body. This adaptation will be transmitted by inheritance. The inheritors automatically reject the colour rejected by the legator as a result of inheriting the sentiment of their legator. Consequently, people are only harmonious with their own arts and heritage. They are not harmonious with the arts of others because of hereditary, even though those people who differ in heritage speak a single common language. Such a difference emerges between the groups of one people, even if it is on a small scale. To learn a single language is not the problem, and to understand others' art as a result of learning their language is also not the problem. The problem is the impossibility of a real intuition or adaptation to the language of others. This will remain impossible until the effects of heredity, which is transmitted in the human body, come to an end. Mankind is still backward because humans do not communicate in one inherited common language. It is only a matter of time before mankind achieves that goal, unless civilization should relapse. Chapter 11. Sport, horsemanship, and the stage. Sport is either private, like the prayer which one performs alone inside a closed room, or public, performed collectively in open places, like the prayer which is practiced corporately in places of worship. The first type of sport concerns the individuals themselves, while the second type is of concern to all people. It must be practiced by all and should not be left to anyone else to practice on their behalf. It is unreasonable for crowds to enter places of worship just to view a person or a group of people praying without taking part. It is equally unreasonable for crowds to enter playgrounds and arenas to watch a player of a team without participating themselves. Sport is like praying, eating, and the feelings of coolness and warmth. It is unlikely that crowds will enter a restaurant just to look at a person or a group of people eat. It is also unlikely that they will let a person or a group of people enjoy warmth or ventilation on their behalf. It is equally illogical for the society to allow an individual or a team monopolise sport when the society as a whole pays the cost of such a monopoly for exclusive benefit of one person or a team. In the same way, people should not allow an individual or group, whether it is a party, class, sect, tribe, or parliament, to replace them in deciding their destiny and in defining their needs. Private sport is of concern only to those who practice it on their own and at their own expense. Public sport is a public need, and the people cannot be either democratically or physically represented by others in its practice. Physically, the representative cannot transmit to others how his body and morale benefit from sport. Democratically, no individual or team has the right to monopolise sport, power, wealth, or arms for themselves. Sporting clubs represent the basic organisation of traditional sport in the world today. They retain all expenditure and public facilities allocated to sport in every state. These institutions are social monopolistic agencies like all dictatorial political instruments which monopolise authority, economic instruments which monopolise wealth, and traditional military instruments which monopolise arms. As the era of the masses does away with the instruments monopolising power, wealth, and arms, it will inevitably destroy the monopoly of social activity in such areas as sports, horsemanship, and so forth. The masses who queue to vote for a candidate to represent them in deciding their destiny act on the impossible assumption that this person will represent them and embody, on their behalf, their dignity, sovereignty, and point of view. However, those masses who are robbed of their will and dignity are reduced to mere spectators, watching another person performing what they should naturally be doing themselves. The same holds true of the crowds who, because of ignorance, fail to practice sport by and for themselves. They are fooled by monopolistic instruments which endeavour to stupefy them and divert them to indulging in laughter and applause instead. Sport as a social activity must be for the masses, just as power, wealth, and arms should be in the hands of the people. Public sport is for all the masses. It is the right of all people for their health and recreational benefit. It is mere stupidity to leave its benefits to certain individuals and teams who monopolise these while the masses provide the facilities and pay the expenses for the establishment of public sports. The thousands who crowd stadiums to view, applaud, and laugh are foolish people who have failed to carry out the activity themselves. They line up lethargically in the stands of the sports grounds and applaud those heroes who wrest from them the initiative, dominate the field and control the sport and, in doing so, exploit the facilities that the masses provide. Originally, the public grandstands were designed to demarcate the masses from the playing fields and grounds, to prevent the masses from having access to the playing fields. When the masses march and play sport in the centre of playing fields and open spaces, stadiums will be vacant and become redundant. This will take place when the masses become aware of the fact that sport is a public activity which must be practiced rather than watched. This is more reasonable as an alternative than the present custom of a helpless, apathetic majority that merely watches. Grandstands will disappear because no one will be there to occupy them. Those who are unable to perform the roles of heroism in life, who ignore the events of history, who fall short of envisaging the future, and who are not serious enough in their own lives, are the trivial people who fill the seats of theatres and cinemas to watch the events of life in order to learn their course. They are like pupils who occupy school desks because they are uneducated and also initially illiterate. Those who direct the course of life for themselves have no need to watch life working through actors on the stage or in cinema. Horsemen who hold the reins of their horses likewise have no seat in the grandstands at the racecourse. If every person has a horse, no one will be there to watch and applaud. The sitting spectators are only those who are too helpless to perform this kind of activity because they are not horsemen. Bedouin people show no interest in theatres and shows because they are very serious and industrious. As they have created a serious life, they ridicule acting. Bedouin societies also do not watch performers, but perform games and take part in joyful ceremonies because they naturally recognise the need for these activities and practice them spontaneously. Boxing and wrestling are evidence that mankind has not rid itself of all savage behaviour. Inevitably it will come to an end when humanity ascends the ladder of civilization. Human sacrifice and pistol duels were familiar practices in previous stages of human evolution. However, those savage practices came to an end years ago. People now laugh at themselves and regret such acts. This will be the fate of boxing and wrestling after tens or hundreds of years. The more the people become civilized and sophisticated, the more they are able to ward off both the performance and the encouragement of these practices.